I came home early with the flu, and found out my wife had a secret life. What I overheard from the couch shattered everything I thought I knew about our marriage. It all came out by pure accident, like these things often do. That day I wasn't feeling great. I'd left work early and came home feeling sick to my stomach. I pulled into the garage, shut the door behind me since it was a bit chilly outside, and made my way to the family room. I stretched out on the couch, eyes closed, just trying to ride out the wave of nausea. I hadn't told anyone I was coming home, so when my wife pulled into the driveway a few minutes later, she had no idea I was already there. She always parked outside anyway. This time she was with her sister Rachel. The two of them came in through the front door and headed straight to the kitchen. The way the family room is set up, the couch faces away from the entryway so they didn't see me lying there. I was about to sit up and let them know I was home, but as soon as I lifted my head, another rush of sickness hit me so hard I had to slump back down and stay still until it passed. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. Honestly, I barely registered what they were saying at first, but then their voices in the kitchen started to come into focus. From what I could gather, my wife, her name's Lisa, had dropped by the house on the way to taking Rachel home. She wanted to show off a new dress she'd picked up for their upcoming weekend trip to Chicago. For the last few years, Lisa and Rachel have made it a tradition, just the two of them heading up to the Windy City from our place in Indianapolis for a couple days of shows, shopping, and gallery hopping. Meanwhile, Rachel's husband Mike and I would stay behind with the kids. It felt like the least we could do, considering how hard they both work year-round taking care of the little ones. Lisa and I had been married for 7 years at that point. We had 2 boys, Tyler, who had just turned 5, and Caleb, our 2-year-old. I worked as a mid-level manager at a logistics firm, and while we weren't rolling in it, my salary kept us comfortable. Lisa, for her part, always stayed active. Even after having the kids, she kept herself in amazing shape, and our physical connection had stayed strong. We were close, affectionate, and, I thought, incredibly solid as a couple. Rachel only lived a few blocks away. Our families were tight. We spent holidays together, backyard cookouts, you name it. Honestly, Rachel was like a slightly younger mirror image of Lisa. The two of them were practically glued at the hip. She and Mike had a little girl named Maddie who was 3. Anyway, I'm still lying on the couch trying not to breathe too hard through the nausea, when I hear Rachel reacting to the dress Lisa was showing off. "Oh wow, that's one hot dress," Rachel said, clearly impressed. "Has Jake seen it? Does he know you're planning to wear it on the trip?" "No way," Lisa replied with a laugh. "If Jake saw this, he'd start asking questions. So let's keep this between us, alright? Randy's gonna love it." "Randy? Who the heck is Randy?" I felt that knot in my stomach twist tighter, not from the flu this time but from something deeper. I didn't move. I just laid there waiting, listening, hoping I'd somehow misheard. Then Lisa asked, kind of casually, "You bringing something for Mark too?" "Mark? Who in the world is Mark?" That moment changed everything. As I lay there frozen, trying to process what I'd just overheard, Rachel casually said, "I've got some lingerie tucked away that Mike's never seen. It'll blow his mind." Lisa laughed and added, "Same here. I've got something stashed that Jake hasn't laid eyes on. Randy's gonna lose it when he sees it." At that point I could hardly breathe. Affairs. That's what it sounded like. And not just flings, these weren't vague or one-off things. They were talking like they'd been seeing these men regularly, like there was some kind of ongoing relationship with them. I couldn't make sense of it. Who were Randy and Mike to them? How long had this been happening? How many weekends? How many lies? Then I heard Lisa ask, like she was confirming a detail about a vacation plan, "So, are you going to stay on the pill again this year?" Rachel answered, "Yeah. I told you, I only ever wanted one child with Randy. It's a good thing he and Jake look so much alike. Even Jake's mom says Caleb's the spitting image of him." And that's when the bottom dropped out of my world. I sat there, feeling like someone had punched straight through my stomach. That cold, numb kind of nausea took over, the kind that comes with shock and heartbreak. I could barely keep my insides down, but I forced myself to stay quiet as they wrapped up their conversation. They were getting ready to leave, Lisa offering to drive Rachel back home. I waited until I heard the front door close behind them, then bolted upright and rushed to the downstairs bathroom. I barely made it in time. I didn't even have time to lift the seat, thank God it was already up. I leaned over and let it all come out, wave after wave. I must have emptied everything in my stomach, and even then the dry heaving wouldn't stop. When it was over, I just sat there on the bathroom floor, reeling. My mind was refusing to believe what I'd heard, clinging to any scrap of denial it could find. Lisa, unfaithful? And Caleb, my son, might not even be mine? The grief hit first, and then the fury came in behind it, hot and relentless. Lisa was sleeping with someone named Randy behind my back. And Rachel? Rachel was tangled up with some guy named Mark, all while Mike's sitting at home, none the wiser. What was I supposed to do with that? I knew I needed help, legal help. If this was going to turn into a divorce, I had to know what my options were. Lisa and Rachel were heading to Chicago in just 4 days. That gave me a tiny window to get my ducks in a row. So I grabbed my phone and called my old buddy Nathan, who's both a lawyer and someone I trust with my life. When he picked up, I kept it simple. Hey, I've got 2 things. First, I might be coming down with something. And second, I think I've got a situation with Lisa. I need some advice. He chuckled. Well, I've had my flu shot, so I should be safe. But Lisa? Come on, man. I've known you 2 since the day you got married. You guys have always looked like the perfect couple. Yeah, I said quietly. Tell me about it. I told my friend Jerry everything I'd overheard that afternoon, every single gut-wrenching word. He sat there in disbelief, shaking his head slowly like his brain was trying to catch up with what I was saying. I just can't wrap my head around it, he said after a moment. Lisa and Rachel? Doing something like that? And if Lisa actually planned to have a child with another man? Jake, that's beyond anything I've ever heard. By then it was late in the day and Jerry leaned forward, his tone softening. Listen, I'll swing by later. But for now you should head home. Try your best not to let on that anything's wrong, not yet. This might not be what it looks like. And if it is something else, you don't want to wreck your marriage before you know for sure. He was right. As much as I wanted to confront her right then and there, I had to play it smart. I needed proof, not just suspicion. Yeah, I nodded. I've got to hold it together. Thanks, Jerry, seriously. He stood up and reached out, gripping my hand tightly. I'm so sorry, Jake. You and Lisa have always been 2 of my closest friends. This feels personal to me too. Thanks, man, I said quietly. Go get some rest. When I got home, Lisa was already there. She gave me this warm smile and said, Why didn't you leave work earlier? I thought you weren't feeling well. I lied without thinking. Tried to, but things got busy. Couldn't get away. Well, go take a couple aspirin, she said, her voice filled with casual concern. I'll check on you in a bit. She mentioned how the boys had fun at their weekly daycare and that she and Rachel had done their usual shopping trip. I saw the cutest pair of sandals, she added, but they didn't have my size. So, didn't buy anything. I just stood there, nodding like I was listening, though my head was filled with noise. Grief, anger, disbelief. I couldn't even bring myself to look at the kids. I knew they were in the living room, giggling and playing like any normal day, but I couldn't face them. Not yet. Not with everything that was racing through my mind. I made my way upstairs to the bedroom in a daze. I didn't sleep much. I just stared at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything, trying to breathe through the sickness in my gut. The next morning, I forced myself to eat a quick breakfast at Denny's, more out of routine than hunger, and went into work early. I needed the distraction. Around 8:30, I stepped into my boss's office. Hey Jack, I'll need to take a couple of hours of personal time this morning, I said. He barely looked up, just nodded and went back to what he was doing. How are you feeling this morning? He asked a second later. You didn't look too great when you left early yesterday. I'll be all right, I told him. Might take a bit to fully get past it. He thought I was talking about being sick. And in a way I was. Just not the kind of sickness he meant. Later Jerry and I met again. I told him I needed to know the truth before I made any decisions. What if I misheard? What if I'm wrong? I asked. He leaned in. We've got to find out for sure whether she's actually cheating. And if what you heard is the real deal, then you'll need to figure out whether you want to pursue a divorce. I nodded slowly. You're going to need a private investigator, Jerry said. Someone who can follow Lisa to Chicago and see what's really going on. This won't be cheap though. I'd seriously consider getting Mike involved, Rachel's husband. If we're right, he's in the same boat as you and the 2 of you can split the costs. He gave me a look. It's a chance to kill 2 birds with 1 stone if you catch my drift. I get it, I said. Yeah. I think I know exactly what you mean. Good, Jerry said, leaning back. Just make sure you protect yourself. Your future. Your kids. Your assets. Whatever comes next, you've got to be ready. At this point, Jerry and I had to assume the worst, that what I overheard Lisa and Rachel talking about was exactly what it sounded like. If she's planning to meet this guy in Chicago, Jerry told me, you need to think ahead. Anywhere Lisa has access, joint checking, credit cards, anything, you've got to be prepared. And it might be time to consider changing the beneficiaries on your insurance policies to the kids. It's not uncommon for a spouse, once they sense a breakup coming, to drain the accounts or move money. You can always change it back if this turns out to be nothing, but better safe than sorry. It made sense, but I was cautious. If one of Lisa's charges got declined while she was on the trip, she might catch on that something was off. That could blow everything. So I decided to hold off until I heard back from the investigator. Once I had something concrete, I'd make my move. I went back to the office and tried to refocus on work, but honestly I couldn't get my head straight. I barely touched my lunch. Could have been leftovers from the flu, or more likely the images that wouldn't stop playing in my head. My wife with another man. It made me sick just thinking about it. My anger was right under the surface, waiting to erupt, and I had to keep it in check if I was going to play this smart. Later that afternoon I went through Lisa's email. I didn't know what I expected to find, but then I saw a series of messages from a username that stood out, Arnhem. I copied the entire thread into a new file and saved it to print later. I only skimmed a few, but it was enough. They were coordinating things, planning their weekend. The tone, the timing, the phrasing, it was all there. Proof I didn't want but now couldn't deny. They must have used email while I was home, and I figured they were likely talking on the phone during my work hours too. Still, most of the arrangements looked like they'd been locked in already, so there probably wasn't much more to uncover, at least not in real time. But the email trail would be enough for the investigator to start with. I had already decided I'd place a recorder in Lisa's car around noon Friday, just before she left, and let it run until she returned Sunday night. That would cover the entire weekend without her knowing. That next morning I came downstairs to find Lisa in the kitchen, a full breakfast laid out. The smell of bacon hit me before I even turned the corner. She had coffee made, eggs sizzling, toast on the counter. This wasn't our usual quick cereal routine. I wanted to make sure you had a good breakfast before I go, she said, smiling like everything was perfectly normal. You haven't been eating much this week. That flu really took it out of you. She looked at me with this soft concern, adding, I'm sorry we haven't been close this week. I know you've been trying to protect me, and the kids, from getting sick, and I appreciate it. The guilt. The manipulation. Or maybe she was just putting on a show. I couldn't tell anymore. I knew I had to keep playing the part or she'd get suspicious. So I walked over, set my briefcase down, and wrapped my arms around her. I kissed her on the lips, full on, and tried not to gag from the churning in my stomach. I forced myself to look at her the way I always had, with love and trust, even though everything inside me was screaming. It must have worked because she looked up at me afterward and smiled, a little dazed. Wow, she said, you sure you don't want to stay home this morning and move our usual Sunday morning plans to today? I smiled and nodded. I'd love that, babe. I really would. But if I'm going to be taking a half day off. And I trailed off, keeping the performance alive one moment at a time. I've got to get to the office, I said, my voice steady even though I felt like I was going to crumble. I glanced at Lisa. She looked a little pale, like the color had drained from her face. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me, holding me close for a moment. Just then we heard the honk of Rachel's car from the driveway. Lisa gave me a quick kiss on the lips and turned to grab her bags. As I picked them up and followed her out the door, I caught a glimpse of something in her eyes. Maybe it was a tear, maybe just a trick of the light. But part of me wondered if she somehow knew things were shifting. A few minutes later, I stood in the doorway watching as the car rolled down the street. We waved goodbye to each other like it was any other trip, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it might be the last time we said goodbye like that. Once she was gone, I got the boys settled with breakfast, then picked up my phone and called Mike, Rachel's husband. I told him I was heading over and that I needed to talk. When I got there, I handed him the printed emails. He read in silence, and as he scrolled through each message, his head started shaking. Oh my God, he kept repeating. He didn't need me to explain anymore. The email spelled it out clearly. He'd loved Rachel the same way I loved Lisa, and I could see that realization tearing him apart. When he finished reading, he laid his head on the table and just broke down. Watching him cry felt like watching myself from the outside. I knew exactly how deep that pain went. After a while, I told him about Sam, the private investigator, and how I had someone tailing Lisa and Rachel in Chicago. I told him about the steps I'd already taken to protect our finances and mentioned that I was heading to a clinic later that afternoon to start the process of DNA testing for Caleb. He nodded slowly, still visibly shaken but grateful that I was taking control. On the drive back, I asked Mike if he wanted to stay at my place for the weekend. I didn't think it was a good idea for him to be alone with all that swirling in his head. After a long pause, he agreed, but said he needed to swing by his house to grab a few things first. We made the stop, he packed a bag, and we returned to my place together. The kids had no idea what was happening, thank God. Their little world was still intact, for now. I was determined to keep it that way for as long as possible. Their lives were about to be upended, and the longer we could shield them, the better. Sunday rolled around faster than I expected. That afternoon, before Lisa was due home, I drove Mike and his daughter Maddie back to their place. On the way home I stopped and picked up a few pills, Viagra of all things. It felt absurd at the time, but I had a reason. Back home, around 4 p.m., I heard a familiar honk in the driveway. I stepped outside and saw Lisa smiling as she stepped out of the car. She looked genuinely happy to see me, or at least she played the part well. So I did the same. If she could wear the mask, so could I. I smiled back just as convincingly and helped her carry her luggage inside. The kids lit up when they saw her. She hugged them, laughed, asked about their weekend, and really seemed to pour herself into spending time with them. Meanwhile, I stayed in the background watching, processing, bracing. Later that night I spoke with Sam. He said he'd finished reviewing the footage of Lisa and Rachel's weekend with the guys they'd met, Randy and Mark. His report was almost done, and he'd have it delivered to his office by Wednesday, complete with copies of the video evidence. Wednesday. Just hearing that day made my stomach twist. Not from any flu this time, but from the storm that was heading straight for us. Sam said he wanted to sit down with both me and Mike once everything was ready. We needed to talk, really talk, about what came next. I told Sam I'd give Mike a call and get back to him. So I stepped out and rang Mike at work. I explained what Sam, the investigator, had told me, that the full report was done, and there was something we both needed to see. Mike barely said a word. I don't think he could. Back at Sam's office, he handed me a remote and turned on the monitor. The footage started playing. The video quality was shockingly clear. The camera they used must have been top of the line. A few seconds in, a woman stepped into the frame, wearing a short, black nightie. She climbed onto the bed and straddled the man lying there. I didn't need to guess who it was. It was Lisa. My heart stopped. I felt the room spin. It was the same lingerie she had worn during our own time together that Sunday morning, the one she said was just for me. I barely made it to the bathroom in time before I lost everything I'd eaten. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. When I came back, Sam had paused the video. Without saying a word, he resumed it when I nodded. It only got worse from there. She wasn't just there, she was into it. Laughing, touching, completely unguarded. He handed me a folder. The investigator included everything. Names, addresses, full identification for both Randy and Mark. We want to notify their wives. You good with that? Yeah, I muttered. Let's do it. Sam nodded and continued, we'll get the paperwork ready today. The full written report includes everything. Their names, your wives' involvement, dates, even the hotel check-in records. You'll both get copies. Do with them as you need. He paused, then looked me in the eye. And the paternity results? I swallowed hard. We stopped by the clinic on the way here. Got the DNA results. He handed me another envelope. There's an extra copy in here for Mike too. I opened it. Tyler was mine. Caleb wasn't. That weekend, Mike and I drove to a copy center to print out multiple versions of the report. We bought large envelopes, addressed them to the wives of Randy and Mark, and included short handwritten notes explaining who we were, what we'd found, and how to reach us or Sam directly. We sent them out for overnight delivery to Milwaukee. By Monday, this wasn't just our problem anymore. Later that evening, back at my office, I told my boss I'd be taking a few days off, starting the next morning. There was no way I could keep pretending like everything was okay. That night at home, I was in the kitchen finishing up dinner when Mike asked, "Everything set? Just need to load one of the videos into the DVD player," I said. I grabbed a copy from my briefcase and slid it into the player, then returned to the dining table. I picked up my glass and raised it toward Mike. He raised his too. A quiet salute between two men whose lives had just imploded. Dinner with the kids felt like a normal night. We laughed. We cleaned up. Then we told them they could go into the other room and watch SpongeBob. It was their favorite and we needed them out of the way. Once they were gone, we moved into the family room. Mike and I sat down. I turned to Lisa and Rachel. We have something to show you. I hit play. The video lit up the screen. For a few moments they were just stunned. Completely frozen. Then the tears started. Both of them. Rachel was sobbing. Lisa had her hand over her mouth, shaking, unable to look away. The kids, hearing the crying, came running in. We quickly stood up and ushered them back to the bedroom before they saw anything. When we returned, Lisa finally managed to say something. "Jake, please, turn it off. Please. We need to talk." I finally hit the stop button. The screen went black, but the sobs didn't stop. They sat there, hunched over, faces buried in their hands, tears streaking down their cheeks, shame written all over them. I looked at them both. My voice was calm, but my words were heavy. Talk to us. Explain why you decided to tear our trust to pieces. We believed in you. We trusted you. And now, that trust is gone. It's done. Neither of them answered. I turned to Mike and said quietly, "You should take Rachel and Maddie home. You've got your own road ahead now, your own decisions to make. Lisa and I have a lot more to work through than you do." Mike nodded and I walked them to the door. Rachel kept her face turned away from me, her mascara smudged and streaking down her cheeks. She didn't say a word. I didn't either. I just pulled Mike into a quiet, brotherly hug and told him to keep in touch. Then I turned back into the house and re-entered the family room. Lisa hadn't moved. She was still curled up on the sofa like a wounded animal, sobbing, shaking, barely able to breathe. I stood over her and spoke quietly but firmly. "You should really think about what comes next, Lisa. If I decide to make the investigator's report public, if I tell your parents, your sisters, everyone at church, your life in this town will never be the same. You won't be able to walk into the grocery store without someone looking at you sideways." She didn't respond. Her cries just grew louder, more desperate. I went upstairs and got the boys into pajamas, packed up some toothbrushes, a few bedtime books, and told them we were going on a little overnight adventure. They didn't ask questions, they were just excited. I drove them to my parents' house just 15 minutes down the road. Mom and Dad were surprised to see us, but I kept it simple. "Lisa and I need a little space," I told them. "Just for a night or two." My dad gave me a knowing look and a quiet wink. "We understand, son. Stay as long as you need." Later that night, back at home, Lisa sat across from me at the kitchen table. She'd showered, pulled herself together somewhat, but she looked hollow, like a shell of the woman I once loved. "I want you to know," I told her, "I've been trying hard not to let my need for revenge take over. I don't want to become someone I'll regret being. I've spent the last 10 days in a kind of torment I wouldn't wish on anyone. And I still don't even know if I love you anymore." Her eyes watered again, but this time, there was something else behind them. Something faint but real. "Jake," she whispered, "I still want to be your wife. I want to find a way back to what we had. I never wanted to hurt you like this. I was just afraid. Afraid you'd never respect me again if I told you the truth." I looked at her hard. "Well, you're right about one thing," I said. "You've lost my respect. Completely. But deep down, as much as I hated to admit it, I missed the woman I thought she was. I missed the wife I believed I had. And somewhere, under all the hurt, I still hoped she might be in there, buried under the lies." I looked at Lisa, her face red and soaked in tears, and asked quietly, "So, was it worth it?" She broke down again, choking on her own sobs. "No," she whispered. "No, it wasn't." I nodded, cold but steady. "Then there are going to be conditions. This isn't a free pass back into my life." I took a breath and laid it out for her. "Number 6, you will treat me with respect. Always. No exceptions. You're going to be a supportive, faithful wife and a loving mother to our boys. That's the baseline now." She was still crying, but she listened. "Number 7, I continued, anytime you talk to a man, doesn't matter if it's a text, a phone call, an email, even a message on social media, you're going to tell me. I will have ways of confirming it, so you'd better be honest." She just sat there in silence, nodding faintly, still too broken to argue. "And for the record," I said, my tone sharpening, "Randy and Rachel aren't walking away from this untouched. Copies of the investigator's report and the video have already been sent to their wives." Lisa's eyes widened. "We'll also be filing for alienation of affection," I added. "And as for your so-called friend Randy, if he doesn't agree to sign away parental rights, we'll be suing him for back child support and every future dollar owed. That's not negotiable." Then I leaned in and added, "I expect he'll sign. He'll also be agreeing never to try to contact Caleb, not until he's at least 21 years old." Lisa gasped. "You'll ruin him. You'll ruin Randy." "Oh," I said, sitting back, "so you do still care about him." She covered her mouth, but the silence said it all. Later that weekend, the house seemed almost normal on the surface. Lisa was at the table filling out a crossword puzzle. The boys were on the living room floor building something out of blocks. But I knew better. The normalcy was an illusion. At halftime during the game, I slipped out to the garage. I opened a small tool drawer and pulled out the wiretap recorder I'd purchased earlier that week. I installed it under the workbench, hooked it up to the phone line. From now on, I'd know who Lisa talked to when I wasn't around. Not long after I came back inside, the phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I answered anyway. Jake? A woman said. This is Claire, Randy's wife. I just wanted to thank you for the package you sent me. It was eye-opening. Her voice cracked a bit, but there was steel in it. I'm using the report and the video as part of my divorce filing. He's finished. And thanks to what you gave me, I've got all the proof I need. We talked for a minute longer. I learned that Rachel's husband had received the same evidence. Both women had been blindsided, but both were now prepared to take action. I guess those guys were more reckless than smart, I said. Claire gave a bitter laugh. They'll be working the rest of their lives to pay for what they did. And Randy? With your paternity suit added in, he's in serious trouble. I didn't even get the chance to hang up the phone before Lisa jumped up from the living room and ran out of the room, sobbing all over again. She knew what was coming. And it was only just beginning. She came back into the room, her face still streaked from tears, and said, I'm sorry for running off like that. I just felt overwhelmed all of a sudden. I thought maybe I should get checked for walking pneumonia or something. But I knew better. What she was dealing with wasn't a sickness of the body, it was a sickness of the heart, of the mind, of conscience. Our relationship had become hollow. The intimacy we shared was purely physical, driven by some twisted mixture of guilt and obligation. There was no tenderness anymore. Just habit. Sometimes I'd respond out of anger or frustration, and she wouldn't even resist. She just let it happen. That kind of silence cuts deeper than words ever could. Each night when I got home from work, I checked the recorder, still wired into the phone. I kept hoping and dreading that I'd find something. But there was nothing. No suspicious calls. No secret contacts. She called me faithfully every time she left the house, just like I'd asked her to. She reported back like a soldier on duty. But I knew none of that could fix what was broken between us. One night, we sat in silence at the kitchen table, kids playing a few feet away. I looked at her, really looked at her, and said what I'd been holding back for too long. I love you, Lisa. I always will, in some way. But I can't keep going like this. I watch you fading in front of me, and it's like I'm dying right along with you. The kids, they're feeling it too. They may not say it, but they see it. They know. She didn't speak, just sat with her eyes lowered, wiping a quiet tear from the corner of her eye. I've been doing a lot of thinking, I continued, trying to understand what I still feel for you. But the truth is I feel empty. I don't think I love you anymore, not the way a husband should. That was the moment I admitted the thing I'd been avoiding for so long. I tried to keep this going for the sake of the boys. But it's becoming clearer every day that we're not saving anything. We're just dragging it out. I can't forgive you. I've tried. But the truth is I can't get past it. Meanwhile, over at Mike's house, things weren't much better. Whenever I stopped by to check in, the tension between him and Rachel was thick enough to choke on. They'd gone to counseling trying to make it work, for Maddie's sake, but I could see it in his eyes. That clock was still ticking. As for me, I made a different choice. I never told Caleb the truth. As far as he knew and as far as I was concerned, I was his dad. That never changed. I raised him. I watched him take his first steps. I stayed up with him when he had nightmares. I taught him how to ride a bike. I was there for every scraped knee and silly bedtime question. I couldn't bring myself to sit him down and explain biology like it erased love. I never asked him to stop calling me dad. Because he was, and always would be, my son.